Oh, I have a lot of
Hi, this is Rachel from Ray K Books, and myself and Katie are going to be interviewing Kristin Tubb, the author of The 13th Sign. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I am too. I'm glad you're here. So, you are going to promote The 13th Sign. Can you please tell me a little synopsis, what it's about?
Sure, let me show you the beautiful cover of the book. It is
It is a really beautiful cover.
This is the best book cover, I think, in the universe. But I know I'm biased, but I can say that because the author has nothing to do with the book cover. So I can brag about the cover all I want, right?
Yes.
The 13th Sign is the story of 13-year-old Jalen Jones, who wanders into a New Orleans voodoo shop on her 13th birthday and discovers a locked book about astrology. And the book is called The Keepers of the Zodiac. And of course, like anybody who would discover a locked book, you have to have it, right? Mm-hmm. So she buys the book and takes it home and quickly realizes that her grandmother's pin that her grandmother wears is the key to unlock this book. And so she picks the lock of the book and opens it up, and as she does, she inadvertently wakes up the missing 13th sign of the zodiac, which is named Ophiuchus. And in so doing, as she wakes up the 13th sign, Ophiuchus, everyone on Earth has a personality shift because everybody becomes a new horoscope sign. And that's all based in truth. There are actually 13 signs on the ecliptic, which is the path that the Earth takes around the sun. And Ophiuchus is the missing 13th sign. So it's all based on this idea that there is a sign out there that that very few people know about and that changes your most people's horoscope sign when you add it into the calendar.
Wow, I didn't know that there was a 13th sign. I was like, that was one of my questions, so it's based off of a real sign. So what is your sign?
Well, when you go by a 12-sign horoscope, I'm an Aquarius. And when you go by a 13-sign horoscope, I am a Capricorn. And what's funny is being an Aquarius, Aquarians are the least likely to believe in their horoscope. But and fitting an Aquarian, I'm kind of like, anytime somebody asks me, do you believe in horoscopes, I'm kind of like, you know, they're kind of cool, they're fun, I read it. But if you tell me I'm a Capricorn, I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm not a Capricorn. And nothing against Capricorns. I love Capricorns. My mom's a Capricorn.
Right.
But I think that we all identify with our horoscope sign in a way that even if we don't truly believe in our horoscopes, we identify with our sign. It's part of who we have adopted. It's part of our identity, I think. So I'm really fascinated by that.
Yeah. Well, that's really great. I think the zodiac is, do you also go by, or not go by, but you know about the Chinese zodiac, and you learned more about that as well?
I've been wondering if I shouldn't do a sequel based on the Chinese zodiac.
That would be amazing.
I think it could be really cool. I think it could be a really cool sequel, especially because it's totally different characters. You know, our Greek, it's actually a Greek calendar that is the zodiac calendar, has, you know, different characters than the Chinese one. So I think it could be a really interesting follow-up to the 13th sign.
Mm-hmm. So. I think so too. I mean, it's animals. I'm a snake.
Oh, are you a snake? You know what's funny? Oh, so and this is the year of the snake.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I go to like Chinese places and I look at it, they're like, "You're vain." I'm like, "Thanks a lot." Like, why would you put that there?
Yes, yes. Oh, those vain signs. But you know, okay, so part of what I think is interesting about horoscope signs too, as I was researching it, people who really are into personality theory, and so I researched a lot about personalities, there's no such thing as a bad trait. There's no such thing as a bad personality trait. So if you consider vanity as being a bad trait, which most people I think would, there's always a flip side to that that actually makes it come in handy at sometimes, like You know, vanity also corresponds to self-confidence. So I think that there's a lot of synergy between those kinds of things. Like I happen to be very stubborn, just like a good Aquarian should be.
Yeah.
And but stubbornness comes in handy when you're a writer, you know? I mean, you get rejection after rejection after rejection. By golly, you start to buck up and you finish it. So, you know, I think that there's such a thing as what we perceive as negative traits are actually positive in certain situations.
Yes, I like that philosophy. I didn't think of it that way because whenever I look at it, I just see you're a vain person.
Yeah,
so I don't actually.
Those are the one, and that's the one you remember, right?
Yes, that is the only one I remember. The whole list.
If you're a writer, all you remember are the bad reviews.
Oh, I know.
That's true. I'm a Scorpio.
Okay. So let's see. Let me see, Katie. You're a Scorpio. When's your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday! That's exciting. Okay. So you're a Scorpio under a 12 sign zodiac, but that makes you a Libra under a 13 sign zodiac.
Nice.
So you'll have to look up Libra and see if you identify with the scales.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Libras are very peace-loving, and they're all about balance. That's why they're the scales. So they are very good at balancing, like, work and family, or work time and play time, and that's why they love peace so much, because they're all about balance.
Ah.
Yeah, probably more than you ever wanted to know.
No, that's fine. So you're really into the zodiac. You've learned so much about it from the book, or did you learn so much about this on your own time because you wanted to?
I learned mostly about it because of researching for the book, yes. I did know quite a bit about Aquarius because I am an Aquarius under a 12 sign. And so, yeah, no, I think I researched the zodiac and personality theory for, oh gosh, probably 6 months before I started, as I was writing the book. 13 Sign is the first book that I've written where I sold it on like 50 pages and the concept of the book. And so it was a whole different writing experience for me. It was a very interesting way to write a book. And so I was kind of researching it as I was writing it, and I do not recommend that method. For me, it didn't work for me. Maybe it would work for a Capricorn. I have both coffee and water going on if you're keeping track of all the liquids.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you were to meet any of the zodiac, which one would it be?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If you were to meet any of the zodiac, which one would it be?
Oh, if I were to meet any of them, I have to probably answer Pisces. And the reason why is because I always joke and say I'm a wannabe Pisces because my husband is a Pisces, my son is a Pisces, several of my very best friends are all Pisces. And so and what's funny is they're fish and I'm water. Aquarius is water bearer and they're all fish, so it's a natural connection supposedly. But yeah, I would definitely want to meet Pisces. Plus, in the book, they're not one of the more vicious battles that Jalen has to have. She has to battle each one of these 12 signs in order to set everyone's personality back. And Pisces is one of the milder battles. I guess
so, is the Pisces, since you have so many Pisces in your life, does one of your friends or one of your family members, do they kind of, did you write them Pisces through that person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so funny that you would ask that. Yes. In fact, if I have good friends that I knew were certain horoscope signs, I absolutely put those characteristics that I knew about that friend into that character.
Did you tell them, or you're like, this is like about you right here?
Oh no! Like anybody, like we've already discussed, you would pick out the negatives instead of the good stuff. Like there's so many good things, but like any horoscope sign, every horoscope sign has what are considered good traits and what are considered bad traits. But I will kind of sway that towards there's really no such thing as a bad trait. Every trait comes in handy at some point. But yeah, oh yeah, no, I find there's some Geminis in my life, and by golly, I put Gemini in there full swing, and Pisces, and Virgo, Scorpio's my dad.
Right.
So yeah, definitely. I think every writer does that, though. I think that if they picture someone they know a tiny bit associated with that character, I think it can make it a little easier to write, although I don't think you would ever base a character 100% off of someone you know.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions on Twitter.
Oh, great.
At Read Draw Dreams says, "Wow, this book sounds amazing. I need this book."
Oh, thank you.
And then she asks, "Was Pandora's Box a sort of inspiration for this book?"
Oh, what a great question. No, but I wish I had thought of that. That is a great idea. Maybe, ooh, that could be the next, that could be the beginning of the Chinese Zodiac book, right? Pandora's Box, like a little Chinese box. No, you know what's funny is when I started researching the 13th sign, the two books that I wrote before the 13th sign were Selling Hope and Autumn Winifred Oliver Does Things Different, and they're both historical fiction. So I started writing 13th sign more from the historical perspective of the zodiac calendar. Like, where does the zodiac calendar come from? Why is it still even around? It's been around 5,000 years. And so I wanted to know, like, what is it about the zodiac calendar that that we cling to so desperately and want to know so much about ourselves? So when I started researching it, I found out that many scholars think that the 12 labors of Hercules is actually a mnemonic device to teach the 12 constellations of the zodiac.
Oh.
And so that's how I got the idea that Jalen has to battle these zodiac signs in order to set the zodiac back to 12 signs. So it's basically a rough retelling of the 12 labors of Hercules, which honestly, I never studied that in high school or college. I never studied the 12 labors of Hercules. I don't know if you guys have.
I've
But
heard
it's one of those myths.
I did.
Yeah, it's one of those myths that once you start reading it, the stories are so ingrained in our culture, it's almost like you intuitively know it, which is, of course, what a myth is all about. But they're fascinating to me. So if you haven't read the 12 Labors of Hercules, try to, just look at the Wikipedia about it, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
I have a question about the 13th sign. So you say that, it's already out there, but did you also make it your own character, like put your own twist to it, like maybe put your own traits to it, or is it purely based on facts of what the character is supposed to be? Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that does make sense. A little bit of both. Yes, I did put a little bit of twist on each one of these. In this book, each horoscope sign is both, when Jalen first encounters them, they're in human form, but they embody, in that human form, they embody like what a Gemini is or what a Libra is. So they have all the personality traits in their human form as a Libra, but as she battles them, they morph into, say, Capricorn becomes a ram, or Taurus, who becomes a bull. And so ultimately she has to fight the symbol of the zodiac. She has to fight a bull, a lion, a water bearer, an archer, those kinds of things. So, yes, I put my own spin on it because in my head I had very clear visions of what a Libra might look like. And in the book, the Libra is this Jamaican guy with really long dreadlocks, and the Aquarius is like this really old lady who sits under a shawl and is knitting and that kind of thing. So it was really fun. That was one of the more fun parts of the book, is figuring out what human form that sign might take the first time you see them. So yeah, that was cool. And Ophiuchus, I can't say what Ophiuchus ends up being because that would be a huge spoiler of the book. But it was so much fun writing that sign in particular because it is the mysterious sign of the zodiac. So yeah.
Awesome.
Good
Okay.
question.
At Fear of Lung asks, do you have any advice for aspiring writers?
Oh gosh. Well, yes. The number one piece of advice that I think every aspiring writer probably already knows, but it's true, is to read, 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 read. And I have an aspiring writer here. I'm gonna change it over to here. This is Kayla, and she is with a local high school, so she is shadowing today on this chat. But yeah, I definitely would say read, read, read is the number one thing. I also would say write everything, because I think that, and I think Kayla and I were just talking about this before the chat started, I used to honestly say that what you like to read will probably be what you like to write. And I still kind of believe that. But I will say I started off writing historical fiction. My first two books that I love these two books. I love these two stories. I honestly didn't think the 13th Sign was going to be a fantasy story, and then it ended up being a fantasy. So I guess all of this to say, write everything. Write poetry, write nonfiction, write fan fiction. Write anything that you feel like you can connect with at any level, and it will help you become a better writer. Even like, I started off writing for newspapers and magazines. I've written for Highlights for Children. I've written for Cricket Magazine and Spider Magazine, those younger magazines. And it's so much fun. Oh, and I've written a ton of like licensed character books, Holly Hobby and Scooby-Doo and Bugs Bunny, all of those kinds of characters. And that really, that kind of experience, it was like a crash course in voice. You hear so much about writers talking about the voice of their character, and boy, if you write a Scooby-Doo book, you better sound like Scooby-Doo, right?
Right.
Yeah, otherwise you don't get the contract. That's the whole point of writing a Scooby-Doo book, is sounding like Scooby-Doo.
Right.
So yeah, that writing anything you can get your hands on, especially in the beginning, I think really just helps. Keeping journals, even thinking about like, and I know this is going to sound cheesy, but like, why am I drawn to that ad? Like if you're flipping through a magazine and you stop on a particular ad, what is about that ad that's making me stop and think?
That can also help with inspiration as well, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I keep Pinterest boards, which I think is a great idea for character sketches and those kinds of things. I think that's really helpful.
So another question about the writing is by Fear of Lung. What is your favorite thing about writing?
Oh, gosh. It's cheating to say
so many things.
I'm not a fan of revision. I really do not love revising. I wish I did, because the people who I know who love to revise, boy, they are happy people. And I don't mind revising. It's just not my favorite part. I love researching. I love the research because you find out all this cool stuff about, Libras that you never knew before. But boy, I love first drafts. There is something about when you're writing a first draft, and I outline my stories, but I'm a firm believer that I keep the outline really loose because my characters still need to surprise me, just like they need to surprise the reader. Because if the characters aren't surprising the writer, they're ultimately not going to be surprising down the road to the reader. So that's what I love. I love doing that first draft, and when all of a sudden my character does something hysterical or says something that is so heartbreaking, And I'm very sentimental, so I'll sit at my desk. I'm crying. I'm like, oh, why did you do that voice? It's such a bad idea.
Wow, so you really get into the character's head. Like you don't just write about them, like you just get emotionally attached. And I think that's really great. When you're writing a book, you're not just like seeing it, but you're feeling it as well. And that's what makes a good author.
I hope that's a good sign and not a bad sign.
That's good. No, I'm complimenting you, I swear.
Yeah. No, I know. Yes, so those voices in your head make you cry, right?
I didn't mean it like that, but it's
I know.
Connected to your character.
Very much so, very much so. And I think that's my favorite part of writing is when your characters surprise, when the characters surprise me on that first draft is the best feeling.
I think that voice, too, probably gives you a lot of passion, doesn't it? It really drives you to tell their story.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point. You know, I'm doing a talk in April in Kentucky at the Southern Kentucky Book Festival about voice. So if you guys have any ideas or thoughts about voice, I'd love to hear them. But I'm definitely thinking that voice is this, you know, I mean, I've heard editors say you can fix a plot. Like a plot is the getting from here to there to there to there. That can be fixed. Voice has to be natural and organic and just inherent in the story.
Is that difficult?
So that's much harder.
Or does that come easy?
Yes, yeah. And so, you know, I've been thinking about voice to me is backstory, but it's not like backstory that's necessarily on the page. It's just what's happened to your character in the past and what's shaped her. And then, you know, I have a big formula drawn out trying to put my finger on it, and I think that's what makes it so hard. And so intangible is that I don't know that you can put a formula on voice, but I'm trying. If I figure it out, I'll let you know.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that vote of confidence.
So, at Read, Draw, Dream asks, was there a moment when you decided that horoscopes and zodiac signs was the one thing you wanted to write about?
Ah, good question. Thank you for that question. Yes. I do think that there has to be a moment in every story where you either jump into the story with every bit of your effort or you put it aside. Because when you commit to a story, you're committing to, as a writer, you're committing to months of your life writing it, you're committing to months of your life editing it, and you're committing to years of your life promoting it, and you're also, this is your career you're building. So it's definitely like you have to think about, does this fit in with how I picture my career? Because, you know, like I said, this was my first fantasy, and it was a different career change from the historical fiction that I had written. So it was a big consideration for me and my agent to think about. And I have loved promoting this book because fantasy has such a unique and fantastic, no pun intended, readership. So, yeah, I do think you have to get to a point where you absolutely 100% say, horoscopes is what I want to write about. And I knew that for sure after I finished Selling Hope. Selling Hope is the story of, in 1910, Earth actually came so close to Halley's Comet. It was the year of Halley's Comet. And Earth actually passed through the tail of the comet. And people thought it was going to be the end of the world. They freaked out. And so con artists came out of the woodwork because everybody was so afraid that it was going to be the world's end that they started selling gas masks and lead umbrellas.
What?
And comet pills.
Really
this is all true. That's all true. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So I was reading that story, and I knew that was a story I had to tell. Like, the minute I read comet pills, I thought, I got to tell that story. So the same was true for horoscopes. After I wrote Selling Hope, I thought, I'd really like to write another space book. I started out in college in aerospace engineering. I did not finish in aerospace engineering, but I love space. I'm fascinated by it. Like the movie Gravity. I just saw it. I was weeping for hours.
I love
I
that
loved it.
movie.
Loved it.
Oh my God, that was an amazing movie.
Yeah,
Made
yeah.
me cry too.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where I was like, I knew I wanted to tell another space book. What is it that I loved about space when I was a tween or a teen? Horoscopes. So,
Right. So you say that fantasy has such a large audience and stuff. So are you going to keep writing? Is this like a newfound love for you, fantasy, or are you going to maybe, if you're done with the second book, go on to like drama or some other type of thing?
yeah, no, I love fantasy. I really do. I read a lot of fantasy. So why I thought I would never write it, I don't know. And I think that's going back to that writing advice. Write things that you don't, write everything, because your passion will be honed in many ways when you write everything. Yes, no, I just am working on a book right now, which is roughly titled "Here There Be Sea Monsters." And it's actually kind of a blending of historical fiction and fantasy about, on those beautiful old antique maps, how they have all these sea monsters swimming through these beautiful maps. And so it's this concept of where did they go? Why aren't they on maps anymore? So wish me luck, because I'm struggling with this one.
Good luck!
Revision stage. Like I said, I like that first draft.
So that's what you're working on right now then?
Yes, yes. And I'm also in the process of co-authoring a contemporary YA as well. But that one's been put on hold. I'm co-authoring it with Courtney C. Stevens, who has Faking Normal coming out in February of 2014. You got to get it. It's a fantastic book.
So along with the writing, new books and stuff, how long? Another Twitter question by @FearOfLung is, how long did it take you to write? So I'm guessing like any book on average.
Okay, yeah. Oh gosh, that's a great question, because I'm finding that it's taking, I think every story comes to life differently. Autumn Winifred Oliver Does Things Different was my first book, and it took me 2 years to research and 4 years to write and edit.
How did you, like, in order for it to take 2 years, did you take classes? Like, what did you do for 2 years?
Yes, during that same amount of time, I was also freelancing for the local newspaper. I was writing magazine articles. So I was also doing, that's when I was doing a lot of that licensed character work, Scooby-Doo, Bugs Bunny, that kind of thing. So yeah, you got to pay the bills.
Right. Right.
So yeah, so that one took a while. But I think what I was also doing with that one is figuring out how I work and how I like to work. Selling Hope took about 2 years to research and about 2 years to write. So I narrowed that down to a 4-year time period. But I was also researching Selling Hope and Autumn at the same time. So there's a lot of overlap there. It's hard to say. It wasn't 9 to 5 researching this book every day. I mean, when I say it took 2 years, it was more 2 years of a day out of the week here, an hour out of the week there. And then 13th Sign was written at a breakneck speed for me. It was the first book that I sold on a partial. So it sold with 50 pages written. And they originally wanted to release it in 2011. So I wrote it very, very quickly, and quite honestly, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Oh no!
My editor was like, "Okay, let's back up."
What do you do when you hear something like that?
Yeah. So it was probably this one was written in just over a year. So
okay, that's good.
Yeah,
and when you say like writing, you're saying that it takes you like 2 years to finish writing. Does that mean revisions as well, or do you mean just
yeah? That usually means revisions and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, definitely. And some of that, like with Selling Hope, that includes editorial revisions and stuff. So yeah.
So we have time for a couple more Twitter questions.
Great.
One of them is by @ReadDrawDream. When did you realize you wanted to be a writer?
Oh gosh, I think writers have it in their very DNA. I don't know. I think that they know very early that they want to be a writer. But I will say I had a very defining moment when I was in 6th grade. I had a fantastic school librarian, and her name is Sheila Rollins, and she's one of my Facebook friends, and she's still part-time at my elementary school at City Park Elementary in Athens, Tennessee. Plug for the old City Parkers. And so she had this fantastic program where if you read 3 books by one author and did book reports on these books, you could interview that author by telephone, which was, an amazing program that she had set up. And I got to interview Madeleine L'Engle by telephone, who wrote the Newbery Award-winning A Wrinkle in Time. It is my favorite book of all time, still to this day. And so I got to interview her by telephone, and I told her I wanted to be a writer. And she said, "Good for you. Keep reading, and you can do it." And so I have really taken that to heart. And when Madeleine L'Engle tells you, "Hey, you can do it," you try.
And that was your advice to other readers as well. So you took her advice and you...
Exactly. And so I definitely try to pay that advice forward. And especially when I do a lot of school visits and workshops, which I love to do. That's one of my very favorite aspects of this job, is going into schools and talking about writing and reading. And that's always the sentiment I pay forward, is keep reading and you can do it. And I think, too, that applies to every career under the sun. I think anytime you want to be a doctor or a musician or an astronaut or a lawyer, you got to read about it in order to excel at it.
Mm-hmm. And Katie, we have time for one more question. Do you want to pick it?
Sure. Fear of Long asks, what character was the most difficult to write?
Oh, good one, Fear of Long. Let's see.
Great Twitter name.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say, I struggled with Leo, I think, probably the most. The reason why is because well, let me step back. Leo and Aries are known in astrology circles as kind of battling for the lead spot in the zodiac. Like, Aries is almost always considered the leader of the zodiac, and they're almost always where the zodiac calendar begins. It goes Aries and then counts around from there. Leo is kind of always felt like second string to Aries. If you do a lot of this research, these are the kind of things you uncover. And so Leo, everybody loves an underdog, and but he's a really strong underdog. Like, Leos, their personalities are huge and they're vibrant and they're go-getters, Oh, are you a Leo?
I'm a Leo. You're describing me.
Yeah, I love Leos, and so I had a really hard time writing someone who is this big, bold, fantastic character, but who is also an underdog, But the good thing is, the hardest characters are usually the ones you like the best.
Oh, stop you.
No, it is. It really is. Like, the ones that you struggle with the most, once you figure that person out, all right, so here's another one, this Here, There, BC Monsters. The character I'm writing right now is a poker aficionado. She's young, but she knows how to play poker really well. And if you're a poker player, you're all about strategy all the time. And I am having the hardest time figuring this character out, and I finally figured out it's because she's been bluffing me the whole time. She's a poker player. So Again, please send good thoughts and vibes for that character, and I'll send you guys thoughts and writing vibes.
Okay, so now that we're done with questions, now it's time for the giveaway. Yay! Okay, so Kristin is giving away assigned copies of The 13th Sign,
yes,
Selling Hope, Autumn Winifred Oliver Does Things Different,
yes,
and a Woman's Large 13th Sign t-shirt.
Oh, and they're cute, too. They have the cover of the book on them. Can you
Oh, that's so adorable.
Yes.
Well, that can be yours if you do 3 things. First, you have to subscribe to our channel, Ray K Books. 2, you have to leave a comment. This live chat will become a video. So once that becomes a video, you leave a comment on the YouTube page. And extra points if you follow Kristin on Twitter at KTubb, T-U-B-B. And when you comment, also leave your Twitter username so I can confirm that you're following Kristin. Again, the Twitter is optional because not everybody has a Twitter. But
you should
that's all you have to do. And this is USA and Canada only. So again, those are the only 3 things you have to do. And thank you so much, Kristin, for being here. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Katie. I had so much fun. You guys asked some great questions, some hard questions, and I love that. I love that. It was a great time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.